When humanity first entered the interstellar stage, the galaxy did not see a future superpower. It saw a divided world that had barely survived its own adolescence. Earth's history was public record, and other civilizations studied it with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. Humans had fought global wars, poisoned their own atmosphere, split the atom before mastering their tempers, and nearly ended themselves more than once. By every predictive model used by the older species of the galactic Concord, humanity should not have survived long enough to invent faster-than-light travel, and yet they had. The Concord tolerated humanity rather than respected it. Humans were enthusiastic traders, relentless innovators, and strangely persistent negotiators. They lacked the refined biotechnology of the Athari Combine and did not possess the centuries-old unified governance of the town hegemony. Their ships were sturdy but inelegant. Their politics were loud. Their culture was chaotic. They were, in short, unimpressive. What the Concord failed to measure was resilience. The Vrax Collective was the first to test that variable. The Vrax were not cruel by their own standards. They were simply efficient. Their expansion doctrine was based on resource optimization. If a system possessed useful materials and insufficient defensive capability, it was absorbed. Resistance was eliminated quickly to minimize long-term instability. When Vrax scouts analyzed the outer human colonies along the Cygnus frontier, they concluded that assimilation would require minimal expenditure. The first strike was devastating. Orbital infrastructure was dismantled within hours. Automated defense grids were hacked and turned inward. Two colonies went dark before Earth even received fragmented distress signals. To the Vrax, the matter was procedural. A report was filed. A projection was updated. Human territory was reclassified as pending acquisition. Earth responded with a message that confused the collective's strategic algorithms. We acknowledge your actions. We will respond. There were no emotional declarations. No threats. No pleas for mediation. Just a statement of intent. The collective interpreted this as posturing. Their models predicted that humanity would attempt negotiation through the Concord, perhaps request sanctions or limited intervention. Instead, human fleets disappeared from expected patrol routes. Commercial traffic shifted patterns. Deep range probes altered trajectories. From the outside, it appeared disorganized. It was not. Humanity had spent centuries surviving its own worst instincts. That process had left scars, but it had also produced something rare, a species accustomed to crisis. Where others saw catastrophe, humans saw a problem set. Where others froze under existential threat, humans accelerated. Within 72 hours, every major human government had transferred tactical authority to a unified wartime command. Rival nations that had competed economically and politically for generations synchronized their fleets without public debate. Civilian industries retooled production lines overnight. Artificial intelligence networks were released from peacetime constraint protocols. Humanity did not need to become something new to fight a war. It simply reverted to a version of itself it had hoped never to use again. The Vrax advanced toward a third colony expecting predictable resistance. Instead, they encountered empty space. No defense platforms, no fleet formations. Only the planet below, apparently abandoned. The collective initiated planetary descent protocols. They never reached the surface. Human engineers had converted the colony's asteroid belt into a distributed weapons. Array months earlier, during a mining expansion initiative that had attracted little attention. When the Vrax fleet crossed the inner belt, thousands of autonomous kinetic platforms activated simultaneously. Each projectile was unguided by conventional standards. relying instead on predictive gravitational modeling refined through decades of human experimentation in extreme environments. The barrage was not indiscriminate, it was surgical. Engines were targeted first, then command vessels, then logistical carriers. Within minutes, the Vrax formation collapsed into drifting wreckage. The collective recalculated. They escalated. A primary Vrax armada translated directly into the Cygnus frontier with enough force to overwhelm any known regional defense. The Concorde watched nervously but did not intervene. Historically, no emerging species had withstood a full Vrax reclamation fleet. Humanity did not attempt to meet the armada head-on. Instead, they allowed it to advance deeper into contested space, while executing what appeared to be a fragmented retreat. Vrax commanders identified patterns of weakness and pursued aggressively, confident that human coordination was breaking down under pressure. What they did not understand was that human retreat doctrine had been perfected long before they discovered alien life, drawing an enemy inward, stretching supply lines, feeding controlled information into enemy analysis systems. These were not new ideas. They were lessons written in Earth's oldest military archives. When the Vrax armada crossed into the Helios corridor, the trap closed. Human cyber warfare units infiltrated. Collective communication nodes using adaptive code structures modeled on evolutionary biology. Software that mutated faster than standard countermeasures could isolate it. Simultaneously, long-range strike groups emerged from concealed jump points behind the armada, targeting supply carriers and relay ships. Deprived of coordination and reinforcement, the Vrax formation fragmented. Then the humans did something the Concorde had never seen before. They broadcast their entire tactical framework across open channels. Every maneuver, every calculation, every contingency. The message was clear. This was not desperation. This was capability. Cornered and isolated, the Vrax attempted full-spectrum retaliation, including planetary sterilization protocols aimed at human worlds. That decision ended the war. Humanity responded with overwhelming precision strikes on Vrax production centers, shipyards, and command nexuses. Civilian habitats were bypassed. Agricultural zones were spared. The objective was not annihilation but incapacitation. After 11 days of sustained conflict, the Vrax Collective transmitted unconditional surrender. The Concorde expected punitive devastation. Humanity had lost millions across its frontier colonies. Entire cities had been erased. By historical precedent, such losses demanded retribution. Instead, humanity imposed demilitarization, territorial withdrawal, and monitored technological restrictions. They required reparations dedicated specifically to rebuilding destroyed human and non-human colonies alike. When questioned privately by Concorde observers why they had not dismantled the collective entirely, the human high commander answered without hesitation. Because extinction is easy, stability is hard. We prefer hard solutions. In the decades that followed, strategic assessments across the Concorde were quietly amended. Humanity was no longer categorized as a volatile minor species. It was classified as a high-resilience civilization with adaptive warfare capabilities and extreme escalation potential under existential threat. The final note added to the Concorde archives was brief. Humans do not seek domination, they seek survival. If forced to choose between the two, they will redefine the difference. And from that point on, no empire looked at human space and saw weakness again.